Yo, what's going on, guys? CultOfMush back at it with another video. This is an $800 gaming PC build, and if you guys are looking to play games at 1080p and get really good settings and really good frame rates, meaning maxing out every new release and getting 60 frames per second, or in the majority of the cases much higher than 60 frames per second. Obviously, with any PC, there will be limitations with games that are just bad ports, or games that offer ridiculous settings and you can't max everything out, but for the most part, this build is going to do a really good job at 1080p and getting 60 FPS on all the latest games. So let's get right into this with the CPU of the build. I went with the Intel Core i5-4460 3.2 GHz quad-core processor. I really wanted to fit in something like an i5-4690K, but that's like $225, and you really can't fit a K-series processor in an $800 build because that means not only will you have to spend the $50 on the CPU, you'll have to get a decent CPU cooler, and you'll have to get a decent motherboard. So honestly, if you guys do want to get a K-series processor, you're gonna have to spend $900 minimum, maybe even $1,000. But still, this Intel Core i5-4460 is a really good CPU. It's already clocked at 3.2 GHz, which is fairly decent, and it is an i5 and it is a quad-core CPU, which these days is almost essential because the i3 is starting to become very limiting in a lot of games. And you could also go with something like the FX 8350, but the i5-4460 is going to offer you better gaming performance, and that's what this build primarily is geared for. It's geared for gaming performance. And with this CPU, you'll be able to stick with the stock cooler since you're not going to be overclocking it or doing anything crazy like that, so the stock cooler is going to do the job just fine. And for $175, it's a fairly good CPU in the build. It's not a world beater by any means, but if paired with a good video card, it will do the trick on the latest games. Moving on to the motherboard, I went with the ASRock H97 Anniversary ATX LG1150 motherboard. I just wanted to get something cheap, something that wouldn't break the bank but still offer all the features you need. Obviously, you don't need to get a Z97 board since you're not going to be overclocking. However, in the future, if you are planning to upgrade to a K-series processor, maybe get a Z97 board now, so you won't have to worry about that in the future, but I don't see that being the case for many of you. With this ASRock H97 board, you're going to get a motherboard with 4 RAM slots up to DDR3 1600MHz up to 32GB of max memory. It's got RAID support. No Crossfire or SLI support, but in my opinion, on a budget, you shouldn't really worry about that anyway. It's got 6 SATA 60 ports, and it's got onboard USB 3 headers. So for a $70 motherboard, you're getting all the essentials, some extra benefits, but for the most part, this is a great motherboard in a budget and build. For memory, I went with G.Skill RipjawsX series 8GB, 2 4GB sticks, DDR3 1600MHz for a great $33. That's a fantastic price for a great kit of 8GB of RAM. Hell, if you want to go for 16GB now, I honestly couldn't blame you that much because of how cheap 8GB of RAM is. You just buy 2 kits of this and you'll be good to go. However, for most of you budget gamers, I still see 8GB as being the sweet spot. Yeah, some games these days like Star Wars Battlefront do recommend 16GB of RAM, but that's a game that I played on my PC with 8GB of RAM, and I was able to play that game no problem. So really, a lot of times when developers do recommend 16GB of RAM for a certain game, usually they're just overstating things and you'll just be fine with 8GB. But right now, the fact that you can get this great kit of RAM for $33 is such a great price. I honestly don't see it getting much cheaper than this. $30 has been the cheapest I've seen 8GB of RAM for, so if you're waiting for it to get cheaper, really why at this point? It's $33, it's so cheap, just go and buy it. For storage, I went with the Western Digital Caviar Blue 1TB. No SSD in this build. You really can't fit an SSD in an $800 build unless you want to get something super small, like maybe a 64GB SSD or maybe even a 120GB SSD if you have the extra cash. Those are only around $60 right now, so if you do have the extra cash and you can pick that up, I would recommend it. However, if you want to stick to the $800 budget, either you're going to get the Caviar Blue 1TB or you're going to eliminate that altogether and just pick up an SSD, which in my opinion is not the route you should go with, especially for a gaming PC. You're gonna be downloading a lot of games, you're gonna be picking up games during the Steam sales, and an SSD is not gonna have enough storage to store all those games. With the Caviar Blue, you're still getting a very competent mechanical drive. It's got a terabyte of storage, which is going to be enough for most people, but some people might even need more than a terabyte. And if that's the case, go look at Seagate's 2 or 3 terabyte drives. They're fairly cheap if you want to pick those up. But if not, the Caviar Blue 1TB gives you a lot of storage. It's fairly reliable for a mechanical drive. I've actually had a Caviar Blue for the last 4 years, and that hasn't failed on me yet. So for a mechanical drive, I've had pretty good experiences with this hard drive. Moving on to the video card, I went with the XFX Radeon R9 390 8GB double dissipation video card. This GPU is at $305 right now, which is a great price. The R9 390 is obviously one of the most popular video cards on the market right now, this and the GTX 970. And obviously there's probably a lot of comment wars going on right now saying, why didn't I go with the GTX 970? Are you an AMD fanboy? Honestly, if you want to get an NVIDIA video card, get the GTX 970. I have one myself and it works great. The R9 390 in most games does outperform the GTX 970, and it's got 8GB of VRAM, which is a nice addition. Obviously, NVIDIA does have its own perks with things like shadow play and some games running better on NVIDIA hardware. But again, I'll leave that decision up to you guys. In the build itself, I have the R9 390 listed, but you could go either way if you want. With the R9 390, you're going to be getting great 1080p gaming performance. Again, nearly maxing out all the latest games, whether it be Metal Gear Solid 5, Rise of the Tomb Raider, The Witcher 3, Fallout 4, all those games at 1080p, really good settings, really good frame rates. With super high-end games like The Witcher 3, you might have to turn down a setting or two if you want to get 60 FPS locked. However, for the majority of games, you'll be able to max them out or near max them out and get 60 FPS. And if you do have a 1440p monitor, the R9 390 can play games at that resolution as well, albeit obviously not as well as 1080p, but if you want to play some like older games, or if you're okay lowering the settings, yeah, you can play at that resolution as well. Overall, there's a reason why the R9 390 is the most popular video card on the market right now. I wish I had one myself. The performance is honestly insane for the price that you're paying. $300 is a great price. And with the R9 390, it looks like the price now is going lower and lower, so you can find some discounts on it if you look. $305 as a base price is great, and I think it's highly worth it. But like I said, if you're adamant about getting an NVIDIA video card, don't be wary about getting a GTX 970 at all. That's a fantastic GPU as well, but currently I do think the R9 390 is a better overall value. Moving on to the power supply, I went with the Rosewill Hive 650W 80 plus bronze certified power supply. This is a semi-modular power supply, and yes, it is 650 watts, but like I said, the motherboard doesn't even have the option to go for an SLI or crossfire configuration, so 650 watts is going to be just fine to power the build. I thought it would have been a better idea to get something of a lower wattage and of a higher quality and get a semi-modular power supply as well, so cable management is much easier for you guys. This power supply goes for $80, which is kind of steep for a 650 watt power supply, but for the quality and for the fact that it's a semi-modular power supply, I thought it was a decent enough deal to put it in this build. Finally, for the case, I went with the Corsair 200R ATX mid-tower case. Now, this case is a ridiculous deal right now over on Newegg. The base price of the case is $60, and for that price, this is a pretty good case. But there's a $5 off promo code, as well as a $10 off mail-in rebate. So if you use all of that, you can end up getting this case for $45 on Newegg, which is a great deal. And aesthetically, this case isn't anything amazing, but for a beginner case, this is a fantastic route to go with. Aesthetically, it does have a clean black look, which I like, and even being a mid-tower case, it's got a lot of room for upgrades and easy expandability. And considering if you use the mail-in rebate and the $5 off promo code, you end up getting this case for only about $5 to $10 more than something like an NZXT Source 210, so this is a great deal right now, highly recommended, and Corsair has a pretty good track record with all of their cases, and the Corsair 200R definitely falls in line. So that's gonna wrap up this $800 build. If you guys enjoyed this video, give it a like. If you disliked, obviously hit the dislike button, and if you have a request for a future video, leave it in the comments section down below. Thank you for watching, have a great day, and I will catch you guys in the next one. Peace out.